A couple of weeks ago, I jumped on a plane for 3 days of snowmobiling in Hokkaido, the main northern island of Japan. Hokkaido is the Revelstoke of Japan. It's a snowmobiling paradise. But rather than just queuing up slow motion shots of me and my mates riding in the hills, I thought I'd try to describe what it's like to be a snowmobiler in Japan. You know, what's the scene, what do Japanese sledders get up to on a typical day, and what might be a bit different from other places in the world. For sure I won't cover everything, so if you want to know more, just ask me in the comments and I'll make something up. Japan has been having the worst winter in 70 years, so snow has quite literally been thin on the ground. But the day before we arrived, northern Hokkaido just had a record cold day of minus 36 degrees Celsius, and the Niseko area had also had a pretty good refresh of snow, so it was all on. On the Japan mainland, it doesn't often get much colder than about minus 10 degrees centigrade or so. Hokkaido gets a bit colder, a bit more often, but still really as crazy, super cold as eastern Canada. So it's a pretty good environment for sledding. You know, the first night of a trip like this, I often have the kind of dread mixed with regret at having signed up for it. I'm tired, still thinking about work, had to sit in the middle seat of a van for 3 hours with a TV monitor shoved in my face, blaring stupid Japanese variety shows that people here seem to think is as good as background music. And then this one drunk fucker in the lodge stayed up until 3:30 in the morning banging a spoon on a pot below my bedroom because he thought it was amazingly funny. So it wasn't a great start to the trip, but then the sun comes up, you look out the window, and you remember that you're about to have 3 days of this. And the buzz comes back and doesn't go away. For this trip, my local skidoo dealer in Niigata, which is a couple of hours west of Tokyo, took my sled up to Hokkaido for me in a transporter. Hokkaido is home to epic powder, and tourists come from all over the world to ski and snowboard here, but not many people realize how much terrain there is for snowmobiling. Basically, once the bears go to sleep, Hokkaido turns into a massive snowmobile terrain park, and the area we rode is just one tiny piece of it. A few of the guys loaded their trucks and sleds on the ferry from the mainland, just sneaking in under the 5 meter limit for the cheap rate, even with the sled hanging off the back of the truck. And as I showed in another video, this dude just built a house on his truck deck. Hokkaido's got more space than the mainland, and most riders haul their sleds on trailers for some reason. I love this guy's custom pickup cut down from a Nissan Patrol wagon. By the way, that yellow sign behind the truck says, "Do not park your snowmobile towing vehicles here." And actually that's a very Japanese thing. People think Japan is a very strict nation with lots of rules. And it is, but in many ways there's incredible freedom in Japan. Freedom to not have all your stuff stolen, freedom from violence and crime. And when it comes to rules and regulations, there's a surprising amount of wriggle room. If you ask that guy clearing the parking lot in his council vehicle, if you can park your car there all day to go snowmobiling, he'll be forced to say no. But that's only because you've put him in a situation where he knows what the rule is and he has to tell you it. So oftentimes the best approach is just do it and apologize later if you have to. Getting ready to go riding in Japan is the same as anywhere, I think. There's always someone doing repairs, someone who's forgotten their helmet or their left boot, and nearly always someone who gets stuck immediately as soon as their sled hits the snow. Quite often me. So what do people ride? This trip's an annual thing arranged by the skidoo dealer where I bought my Summit a few years back, but it's totally non-denominational. You just run what you brung. I brung my Alpha 1 for this trip, but we had all the sleds out for the ride. The one brand that you almost never see in Japan is Yamaha. It's kind of ironic. Here we are in the home of Yamaha, but almost no one here rides the Yami 4-strokes. They just don't. In fact, the closest you get to Japanese technology is the Suzuki motors and the old Arctic Cats.
Good morning. Yeah. Oh yeah.
英語でお願いします。
わかんない。
英語で Good morning お願いします。
あ、おはようございます。今日もよろしくお願いします。
英語で。
英語で何
Good morning.
あ、Good morning。天気いいですね。飲みすぎただけです。I got hammered. Yes.
So we're finally away. The trail-in is usually not so long in Japan. I see vids of people in North America riding 20 miles up a road to get to the playground. But from my experience in Japan, it's seldom more than a couple of clicks. I guess it's just because the density of population and development in Japan is just so much higher than elsewhere. And yet you get the whoop-de-doos. At this spot that was so intense, I was sure every speck of powder would be tracked out. But when we got up the hill, we were alone, so go figure. There was a massive group this year, but as soon as we left the road, there was room to ride while waiting for stragglers. And that's one thing I found in Japan, is that a lot of riders think that getting from A to B is the point of riding. So while you're waiting for the tail end to catch up, they just sit there for 15, 20, 30 minutes talking shit and smoking endless cigarettes, just waiting for the leader to make the track or something. But man, when you've only got 3 days at Japan Revelstoke, I want to keep riding. And it's funny that some of them said at the end of the trip, oh, there wasn't much snow this year, it was boring. I was like, what are you talking about? Everywhere we looked there was endless untracked powder, and I guess you were too busy smoking fags. So like I said, there's lots of good riding in Hokkaido, but I think I'll make a separate vid with the riding highlights, you know, the scenes that are going to sustain me through the long summer and convince me with every view that I'm way better than I actually am. For now, it's enough to say that as you go deeper into the mountains, you shift from flat glades to steeper trees and then open faces, wind-runnel ridges and deep powder meadows. Revelstoke, Hokkaido's got everything you'd ever want to ride. Let's talk about lunch. We were riding with local guides for this trip. These dudes know where to ride, and they know where to find us a good place to eat. Most lunchtimes snowmobiling in Japan, you'll dig out trenches with the sleds and make a central dining table. These guys even bought a tent fly with them one day to keep the snow off, but the rope was too short and it stopped snowing anyway, so we rolled it back up. Of course, you buy lunch on the way to the mountain at a convenience store, Lawson's, 7-Eleven, Family Mart or Mini Mart, or in Hokkaido, Seiko Mart. Instant noodles is where it's at in Japan, and whiskey, washed down with beer. Then after lunch, it's back to the pow, or into a creek bed, or into the trees, or having a laugh at something ridiculous. It's the same everywhere, just a bunch of idiots out having fun until the sun goes down. But no day in Japan in the snow is complete without a trip to the onsen, the hot baths. Some people find it weird to strip butt naked and sit in a tub of hot water with your riding buddies. Actually, it's mainly you Americans who freak out with your kind of messed up, unhappy set of porn addiction on the one hand and religious body shaming on the other. But anyway, I'm telling you, the Japanese have got this bathing thing sorted. It's one of the best things about living in Japan. And this being Japan, there's a vending machine for everything, and there's plenty of weird English so that foreigners who can't speak a word of Japanese can feel intellectually superior to Japanese, who usually have way more English than you have Japanese. Japanese hot baths often have a restaurant as part of the deal, and you can book rooms for a group. So here we're getting full-on Japanese food with someone constantly topping up your beer, because in Japan it's not the done thing to fill your own. And by the way, this guy here is 100% the Mr. Power Mods of Japan. I'm telling you, he is Louis Skibo's doppelganger. Super nice guy, fit bastard, firefighter, and a total sledhead who can't stop messing with machinery. Actually, I asked him if he knew power mods, and he said, hell yes, in Japanese, of course. He's the Canadian guy who's always modding snowmobiles. I watch him on YouTube. And I found this pretty funny because Mr. Japan Power Mods does not understand a word, not a word of English. Or actually, probably one word, fire! So then it's back to the house in a charter bus, because in Japan the blood alcohol limit for driving is 0, nothing, nada, zip. If you drink, you can't drive. Simple, huh? And here's inside the lodge, typical Japan style of sleeping on futon. The local guys bunk downstairs in the lounge, staying up half the night, drinking and smoking 17 packs of cigarettes, and basically fall over drunk and sleep where they land. Thinking a bit more about sledding in Japan versus elsewhere, I'm pretty sure a day out in Japan thrashing a bunch of snow machines is just like anywhere in the world. Shit happens, stuff breaks. This guy's sled came to a stop just missing a tree. And by the way, that's me whistling while they yell out, "Abanai, abanai, look out, danger." Because no bugger in Japan can whistle. It's super strange. If you can sheep whistle with your tongue or fingers in Japan, they think you have magical powers. People in Japan don't even whistle while they work. It's amazing they can make anything. Yeah, so stuff breaks. On this trip we had a Polaris that kept fouling plugs. A poor do-rider who went through 3 belts in one day. Had an Arctic Cat blow up a primary clutch drive. This woman lost her phone somewhere. We had a do needing a tether code reprogrammed, several smashed up hoods, a broken ski, a broken throttle cable, and this 13-year-old who calmly but inexplicably steered his sled into a creek. I figured we'd be there for 3 hours getting him and the sled out, but in that universal snowmobiler's way, everyone figured out how to solve the problem, got to work, and the sled was out in under 10 minutes. And the sun came out, we lined up in the snow, and that was Hokkaido done for another year. A few days later, the truck brought my sled back to the dealer, and there I was, back on home ground. Tell the truth, I was kind of wrecked. Knee swollen up like a pufferfish and a bruised shoulder and a bent finger, but as soon as I could, I headed for my local hill. I was itching to prove my credentials as a true Hokkaido snowmobile powder hero, capable of slaying any piece of snow or terrain you put in front of me. Well, so much for that. It was sheet ice. My ski slid out as soon as I tried to put on edge, and it was all I could do to get back down the hill in one piece. Can't wait to get back to Hokkaido.